Hi everyone, and welcome to May as Well Reviews. I'm Emily, and today we're going to be reviewing the Horseware Micklem Bridle. This specific version is the competition bridle, which is what I'll be talking about today. Years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was exclusively a hunter jumper rider, and you stop, go lay down. Go lay down. Hi everyone, and welcome to May as Well. Reviews. I'm Emily, and today we're going to be talking about the Horseware Micklem Competition Bridle. Now, when I was a hunter jumper rider 3 or 4 years ago, I will tell you that I had pretty much never seen this bridle. I had seen ads for it, I had seen it in some YouTube videos, but it wasn't anything that I saw regularly at competitions. However, since I switched over to do eventing and dressage, I see this bridle practically everywhere. So, a little bit of quick information about this bridle and why it's, seen a lot more in eventing and dressage than in hunter jumper competitions is probably due to the fact that this bridle is FEI, USCA, and USDF legal. So, while it is approved for use in eventing competitions, both the dressage and jumping phase, as well as approved for use in straight dressage, it is not technically approved for use for hunter jumpers. So, for that reason, if you were to compete in hunter jumper in either the equitation or the hunter classes, you would most likely be dinged down by the judge or possibly even eliminated for unconventional or illegal tack. However, there are some things that might make you want to use this as a schooling bridle, which I'll talk about a little bit. If you're curious about the ability to use this bridle in competition, I would recommend speaking to either the horse show officials of the horse shows you're interested in competing in, or talking to your trainer about it. So, why use this bridle? It is obviously different looking than a traditional bridle, and the reason why is it tries to have an anatomical design to be more comfortable for your horse. To tell you directly from what Horseware's website says about it, they say that the bridles are designed to comfortably fit the shape of a horse's skull, avoiding pressure points on sensitive areas. The Micklem Competition Bridle is a show-quality bridle made from hand-finished leather with soft padding on the headpiece, brow band, nose band, and cheek pieces. This version cannot be used as a bitless bridle or a large cavesson. So let's talk about the padding first. So if you look at the bridle and you look at the headpiece, you will see that it is a bit wider in between the ears than a traditional bridle is. And it's also padded underneath. My apologies for the dirt on here, but I think it makes it a little bit easier to see. So you can see that it's fairly thick, it's fairly padded, and it kind of curves back away from the horse's poll at the very top of the horse's head. So moving on, this brow band is actually not the brow band that comes with the bridle, and I'll talk a little bit about that later when I talk about why I decided to make that change. As for the cheek pieces along here, you can see again that they are fairly padded, they're fairly thick, and that same piece of leather runs up over the nose piece, which again, same padding, same thickness as the rest of it. However, it is worth noting that this piece that goes in front of the bit and around the horse's nose in front of the bit is not padded. So just something to keep in mind. So the other part is this whole idea of using it bitless. So if you look at SmartPack's website or you peruse Instagram, you will probably see that some people do use this bridle bitless. SmartPack's Q&A section actually says in the beginning that you can use this bridle bitless, and then they go back a few pages later and say, actually, no, you can't. So it's not something that I've used bitless in the past, but I'll talk a little bit about why that is. Anecdotally, a lot of people say that this bridle helps their horse be a little bit more comfortable in the contact. and that it does, make a horse a little bit more interested in kind of pushing into contact. If you have a horse that kind of pushes away from the contact, rolls behind the bit, throws their head around, this might, kind of help alleviate those problems. Again, if the issue is due to some pressure points on your horse's face, either around their cheek, over their nose, across their poll, these are all sensitive areas of your horse's face. As for my experience, I'll tell you that I have a horse that in a traditional bridle with no flash, she can occasionally like to run through the half halt. So I'll give the half halt, she'll gape her mouth a little bit and kind of push through it. She is a giraffe cross, so sometimes that pushiness comes through. And on the other hand, if she has a flash on, I find that she tends to be very tight through her jaw. So instead of softening and chewing the bit and kind of relaxing into the contact, she kind of braces against it a lot, which obviously makes the job of getting her relaxed through her top line a little bit more difficult. Now, I have a horse who's not really a sensitive soul. She's pretty stoic about most things. However, I have seen that this bridle does actually make a difference for her. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. However, I will say that you'll see I have one side done up with a bit clip that comes with the bridle and one side done up not with a bit clip. So I practice exclusively without the bit clips that come with it. The bit clips are designed to create a little bit more stability for your bit. As you can see, this side with the bit clip, there's not a whole lot of movement there, but this side without the bit clip, this piece really is free to move wherever it wants to. So, some people that have younger horses that are not quite as educated in the contact, might see a little bit more benefit from using the bit clips because it will keep the pressure off the bars of your horse's mouth. However, using the bit clip makes it not legal for dressage in FEI, USDA, or USDF. So if you're going to compete, I definitely would make sure you remove the bit clips and are aware of that rule. So what do I think about the leather? So as I read earlier in Horseware's comments, the leather is supposed to be a higher quality, hand-finished, show quality leather. I would probably disagree with that. In my experience, the leather is very thick. So if you look at the bridle, obviously you have the parts that are padded are very thick, and the padding is significantly soft. However, if you look at a section that isn't padding, like this part that goes over the nose piece, that's still pretty thick. That's still a pretty substantial, thick piece of leather. And then where you have the padding, you can see it's even thicker. So to me, it feels more like halter leather. It's thick, it's stiff. I know that black leather in general, at least in my opinion, tends to be stiffer than brown leather due to the dyeing process. However, this bridle's been in use for a year and a half, and it's still pretty stiff to me. So if you're looking for that buttery, soft, super pliable leather right out of the box, or even a year and a half down the road, I can tell you this probably isn't going to give you that. So overall, that's kind of frustrating. The other issue is the lack of adjustability in this bridle. So we'll start at the top. So the browband. The browband that came with this bridle was, this is a standard horse size bridle, and my horse wears standard horse size bridles typically. I found the browband to be too tight for her. So this thick piece, instead of sitting nicely behind the back of her poll, started to kind of creep forward around her ears, which is pretty uncomfortable for a horse. So I actually got a oversized browband. I got this from Dark Jewel Designs, who has an Etsy shop. She worked with my now husband to pick out 2 designs, send me for Christmas. She's a fantastic small business seller. Her products are great, and she really works very hard to make sure that her customers are happy. So I'll link her Etsy shop below in case you're interested, but this extra width here has definitely been super important for my horse to kind of get the fit that she needs. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, this whole piece that runs from the cheeks, that runs all the way from the cheeks all the way down to the noseband and over the noseband and back, that's all one piece. So if your horse needs more or less room around this area, you really can't get it. You have to shorten and lengthen the sides, which, because this kind of throat latch part is here, can potentially make your throat latch too high or too low. And then this piece sits on a very important part of your horse's face, because if it gets too low, it gets to a very sensitive, very tip of your horse's nose, which isn't very strong. And putting pressure on that point can cause a lot of kind of uncomfortableness, for lack of a better word. If you make it too tight, you put too much pressure on it, can even cause a serious amount of pain. You can actually break off that bone. So I do wish there was a way to kind of adjust here. You can adjust the bit clips and the height of your bit. However, it's not a lot of adjustability. There's only kind of so far up and so far down you can go, because again, it's kind of related to where this nose piece sits, especially if you're using the actual bit clips, because that, if you can see, the bit clips only come in one size, so you can only get that far away. So just something to keep in mind when you look at this bridle. The reins, I use the reins on a more schooling bridle, and these reins are actually thin line reins. I like to feel them better. The reins that come with the Micklem are a little thick, and they're rubber pebble reins. So again, that's probably just a preference. If you like rubber pebble reins, I think they're fine. I use them for schooling. I don't find them as frustrating as webbed reins, but they don't have those notches to keep your hands kind of in the position that you're looking to keep them in. So, the other kind of issue I have with this bridle is that you can only use a certain kind of bit with this bridle, especially if you use the bit clips. And the reason why is because of the way the bit hangs here. If you're trying to use a bit that has a curb chain, it could come into kind of contact with the way the bridle sits and could be pretty ineffective. The other issue is, I find that this here is a lot of movement for using a traditional leverage bit. It allows your bit to swing back, which again decreases the amount of pressure on your horse's poll and makes your leverage bit a lot less effective. Both of which, if you are, increasing your bit to either curb chain or leverage bit, you probably don't want to decrease the effectiveness of it. If you use the bit clips, I think that makes it even worse. So again, something to be aware of. And finally, full cheek bits. So traditionally in a full cheek bit, you keep the ends of the bits in a keeper that goes kind of inside the clasp of your bridle. Because the way this is configured, you can't really do that. And to me, that's more of a safety concern than anything else. Of course, some full cheek bits work differently when they don't have the keepers. But for me, the biggest concern is always that your horse will get that keeper caught on something and hurt themselves. So while I have seen this bridle used with a full cheek bit, it's not something I would do personally. So as I mentioned earlier, I would not use this bridle bitless. And the reason why is, remember when I mentioned that this part of the bridle goes over a very sensitive part of your horse's skull? Well, when you use this bitless, all of the pressure ends up at that point. So while it might be great for hacking around the farm, or maybe a barrelless or a bareback ride around the arena, it's not something that I would use if you really need to be able to use your reins when riding. It's not the same as using hackamore. It's not the same as using even a side pull. It's not the same as using a Dr. Cook bitless bridle, because all of your pressure ends up on this one point. So again, something to be aware of, something you can do, but not necessarily something I would completely recommend. So at the end of the whole thing, I guess the question is this bridle worth it? Well, I would say it is worth it if your horse likes it. I have seen some horses who detest this bridle. Some people have tried to use it because their horses hate flash nose bands, and they have still kind of rejected this bridle. At the same time, I would say that if you get the chance to use it and your horse does like it, it is worth the $200 they ask for it. I don't think that's an outrageous price for a pretty sturdy bridle. It might not have buttery soft leather. It might not have super nice reins that come with it. You might have to make a few modifications to help it fit. However, at the end of the day, It's not a extremely expensive bridle. You can find them used, and it does help some horses in their performance. So what do you think? Is this a bridle that you're interested in trying, or is it one that you've tried before? Tell me below in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe to my videos if you want to see more of Mayswell reviews. Thank you so much, and see you again soon.